Tell me your name and spell it.
My name is Lola, Lola Nelson, Nelson.
Thank you very much. Um, this project is about education and how it's changed over the years. You were born in the 50s.
I was born in 1956.
How would what? How was the educational system in your day, around that time?
Me being an African American in a school that had not quite segregated itself, I don't remember a lot of being picked out because I was in an all black school.
So there, your generation, your daughter's generation, and then my generation. So there's three different generations there. So what's the difference between all three generations?
My daughter's generation is when things started turning itself around. It was segregated and things was looking better for us educational wise. When my granddaughter started school, it was the most beautiful thing that I could see for its educational turning around because it was a lot of different cultures blended in, and that was what was nice about it. It wasn't just me looking at the same face all the time. You get to see different faces, and that's what I liked about it.
What is, now that you have great grandchildren, there is Montessori schools, private schools, and public schools. Um, what would you say is the biggest difference in your eyes between the three different educational systems?
Public education, I feel that they're just there. Some of the teachers, not all of them, are just there to get a check. They're not interested in how the children are learning or if they're even learning. Montessori, I'm not sure of. I guess it's almost like Catholic school because Catholic schools take more time out with the kids. They make sure that they're going to learn something. They're not just going to come out of the school not having learned how to read or count.
Have you noticed a lot now that because you are a supervisor at a cleaning company, have you noticed with a lot of the younger generation that they are missing a couple of things educational wise?
They're missing a whole lot of things educational wise. And mainly, some of them don't know how to read.
How much has that shocked you?
Ooh, a lot because everybody had to learn Spot, the book Spot, but there are kids now that don't even know nothing about that.
Are you shocked at the fact that your great grandchild, Nadiana, cannot read right now? Whereas in when your grandchild was in school, they was able to read at her age.
Yes, and I can't fault it all on the system because some of it is the parents. You have parents who don't want to take the time to make sure that their child is getting a proper education. Where it is in our home, we took the time to make sure it was always somebody there to make sure that my grandkids and my daughter got the education that I felt she was supposed to have to be out here in this world.
Do you think sometimes now they just medicate kids and diagnose them with ADD and ADHD without really properly testing them and or giving them the time to learn?
I think that it's too much medication given to kids, especially when it's got something to do with learning because it gives the teachers time enough to go drink coffee or text or whatever that they do. When in my day, that's the teachers walked around. If you had a problem, you got assigned to a teacher that was actually sitting there to teach you how to read, and help you with your numbers and things. It's shocking to me that the school system even allow a lot of that to go on, and they passing them saying that they qualified when they're not.
Back in your day, was there such thing as testing people to see if they had ADHD or anything, or did they just pass them?
They just passed us. They passed us because I didn't know that I had a problem until I got into junior high school.
Do you think that they need to have more electives in school to make kids more interested in going to school? Like home ec?
I think that they took a lot of the programs out of the school system, and I wouldn't say that they were babysitters, but they were programs to make you want to go to school. I wanted to go to school. I learned how to sew in home economics. I learned how to cook. Some of my cooking came from home economics.
What do you think that they could do to change the educational system? Because a lot of kids are dropping out. What do you think that they could do?
I think it's too late because the system has been stuck in the way that they've stuck themselves in, and it's no turning it back. They could try to bring some of the programs back, and you would get over half of your kids that's in school, they would stay in school. And I honestly believe that they would learn if it was interesting for them to do and it was something that they were looking forward to. They boggle them down with all this homework, but then they don't explain it to them. They come home with all of these books in a book bag, and the first thing you ask them is, well, you sitting down trying to help them, and they don't have no instructions on what's supposed to be done. They just give them a book and tell them to go home with it. And I have seen that with my great grandkids. Not my grandkids, but the great grandkids. Because me personally, I was there with my daughter and with my granddaughters and my grandson. And if they were shy from anything, it was because they needed more help with the program that they were, whatever subject they were taking at the time.
Well, I thank you very much, Miss Lola, for helping with the project. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I hope the educational program can change itself around because we still got kids that's got to grow up in this world. And the way it's looking right now, we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
How do you feel about the fact that Nadiana is 7 years old and she is in the first grade going into the second, and she doesn't know her days of the week from her months to the year?
I'm very embarrassed about that because, however, we've taken the time to teach Nadiana her days of the week and her months of the year, and she still can't get it. And if I'm not doing it with her, it's other people that I work with that has done it with her. So I'm not understanding the whole process of why she's not getting it. But if you're sitting there singing it with her and she's in the pre-K room, which is my room, she can pick it up and don't miss a beat at all. And that's the
about
start.
the fact that she is in school and they're supposed to be teaching her that, and they're passing her.
I think they're passing her. I think they're passing Nadiana on the merit of she's too tall, she's around the right age, and they don't want to hold her back anymore. But however, her academic level is too low for them to constantly keep passing her. She's not learning anything. They're just passing her just because she's there. And she shows them a little bit of what she can do, but that's not Nadiana's full potential, and I know it. So it's irritating to know that you're going to have a child growing up in school, thinking that because I can show you a little bit and don't have to put my full potential in any of my work ethic, that I can still get past. I can go to the next grade.
Think that the IEP, because that's what she has, is another excuse for the school to put less effort into making sure she gets the education that she needs.
That's exactly what that IEP does, because it's not holding Nadiana accountable with any of her educational and academic needs. And as long as Nadiana, like I just said moments ago, can show you just a little bit, oh, I know it, and that's enough for the teacher to go, well, I've done my job, you're full of crap. Because that child still doesn't know the proper things that she needs to get her to the next grade, because she's going to be struggling in the next grade. And why didn't the first teacher teach her what she needed to know is beyond me.
You teach at daycare, and not just Nadiana. Besides her, do you see other kids that is around Nadiana's age that still can't read and still can't hold a normal conversation?
Yes, I do. I see it every day. And it's really, really, really a sad shame to see that the people in this generation that's going to be possibly caring for me as I get older, or once I get older, they don't have education. They can't read. And it's a shame that they can't read. And when you ask them to read, they get highly upset, blowing up, because they can't read. They can't read the first word out of a paragraph, and that's disturbing, because you're old enough to know this stuff and you just refuse to do it. But you can't even do a two-letter word, if and two, but you can be smart enough and disrespectful. You can't even spell those words, but you don't care to spell it. You just care about they making me read, they being mean to me. And that's sad, because they're never gonna go anywhere. They're gonna still be the average person on the street. They're going to use their street sense to get by, and not their educational sense to help them improve, so they don't have to live that kind of life. And that's really, really sad.
Out of all the kids that you teach that are like 8 and above, how many of them do you think they could actually read a book?
You said out of 8?
Mm-hmm.
2. If 2.
Notice the ones that can't read are not on the educational level that they need to be at, are the ones that misbehave the most.
Yes, there's always a problem with a child when they can't read and they don't find the material being interesting. That's when they do decide to start becoming A, the class clown, or B, the one that's starting a fight, or the disruptor of the group time when you're giving group activity. That's when they become the most disruptive, because they don't know it and they don't want anybody else to pick it up, because you ask every child the same thing: give me a color, give me a letter, and you change it around: give me a color, a letter, a shape, a number. And to go around the room and flashing those things, and these children can't say it. So let me throw off the ones that I do know it, so that way they won't ask me, and maybe they'll ask me the same question, and I'll be able to give the right answer, but I'm only giving the right answer because I just heard somebody else say it. I don't really know it myself.
Things should be held accountable for the children of today not being able to read or being able to speak properly, knowing basic math skills. Who do you think should be accountable? The school, the parents, or both?
Everybody. The parents first, because they're the very first educator. The teacher second, because the teacher should be able to deliver the material in a manner that the child doesn't get it. And if they're still not getting it, then there's other sources of education that they can go out and seek to find for this child. And if the parents and teachers are really working together, then you really shouldn't have a problem. And if all else fails, get the child tested to see if they have a learning disability, and find out what way learns for that child. Just don't leave that child out there like, you know what, somebody will teach you or you'll pick it up.
It's a lot of the times now they always want to give kids medication or just label them ADD or ADHD instead of really trying to figure out if the kid can basically just learn. Have you ever noticed that a lot of times people are now just making kids have all these diseases, and instead of saying they don't want to teach them, or
Yes. Yes, I do.
how
Because
often?
I'm going to say out of 18 kids in a room, you have at least 8 of those kids who the parents want you to sign a paper from Children's Hospital saying that they have a behavior disorder, that there's a learning disorder, and Children's Hospital just wants to medicate them to keep the parents happy and to keep the pharmacy companies in business. But actually, a lot of those kids, they are teachable. They are very learnable, and if you give them the chance and really, really try with those children, they'll be able to pick it up. But it's about the dedication you have to really want to deliver that to that child and find out what works better for that child.
You do in your class, what's your educational way of teaching the kids?
I like to do a lot of songs with them because they learn better sometimes through music. And with them learning better with music, you find out what way that they really like to learn it. And some of it you can do through a book. And some of them will give me the same book 4 or 5 times and we'll read it, but in some kind of way they're going to benefit from it because that makes the other kids pick up on it. If you're doing a book about ABCs, I love Dr. Seuss's ABC book because some of them like to rhyme with words, and that's what that book does. And even with the numbers, and you find songs that do colors and shapes and days of the week, and you do things on music level because there's sometimes all those kids hear when they're at home is nothing but music. So if you're going to be able to teach them something, find a tune that works, that they can pick up and just turn it around and put it to something educational. I taught my kids how to spell their name.
For me, please.
You spell the name Kierra. Nelson. Nelson.
As a 20-something-year-old female, you were dealing with the popular and the non-popular crowd, and you also went to a private school. And you went to a public school. What's the difference?
I don't really think nothing's different about it. I think the only thing that's different is the dress code, which was basically one school had uniform and the other school didn't. But the education was still the same in both schools.
How would you rate how the educational system is now when you were in elementary school, when you were fairly young, and now as an adult?
I would rate the school system to be, from when I was little, I would say about a 10, because we learned from ABCs to math to reading. As a kid, we did hooked on phonics a lot, so that helped me gradually go into the advanced stages. High school, I can give it a 6. Middle school was about a 6. They're just the same stuff, same material, just different teachers. That's all.
You deal with your niece, and you see how she cannot read, and how does that make you feel, educational wise?
Knowing that she can't read academically and school-wise, I think it's shameful, and it's a little embarrassing because she's 7 and she should be able to learn how to read some stuff, but I think if we practice with her a little bit more, she'll get it. It'll just take her longer.
Whose fault do you think it is that a lot of the kids these days cannot read and or do basic math skills?
I want to go with it's the parents' fault and the teachers, and I'm going to go with the teachers first because they're supposed to be teaching them the basics of how to do the math problems, and the parents at home to show them how to do it, to make them feel like they have the confidence to do the work. So I will blame both.
With how you were educated from when you were younger at home, and how you were trying to educate your niece now, what's the difference in educational styles between your mother and you?
Education levels, I would say my mom was a lot strict on us when we were little about learning math and stuff, because she was in education herself, so she was very strict. My teachings of education with my niece, I wouldn't say it's too much of strict, but it's a little bit of fair and strict.
How do you try to teach her reading and science and other subjects? How do you show her?
I at least try to see if she can do it herself at first. And if she has any problems, then I'll just step in and help her on the way. But normally I would at least like for her to do some stuff on her own before I just give her the answer.
Can you Can you give me an example of a project that you and Nadiana just did together?
Actually, that brings up, we just did what is considered science, social studies, I guess. But we did a project on Antarctica or Antarctic explorers and what they did in the Arctic and how they started to be the first or third to get there. That project was a little. I'm going to say I did most of it, but I wanted her to get a feel of how to read it to present it because I think it was due Monday.
She didn't do a good job on the presentation, and why do you think that is?
Crazy person that keeps on blowing up your
Because she probably couldn't read half of that.
Days of the week.
Do it again.
Days of the week. Days of the
Keep
week.
saying.
Days of the week. Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. April, May, July, September. 2 hours.